lovely, beautiful May Day, why wouldn't we talk about the war? No, okay, we're not going to talk about the war. Today I'm going to introduce you to the Victory Day, and this is one of the most important celebrations in Russia. Yeah, I will also shortly explain to you how Russia, my home country, went all the way from never again to we can do it again. Moin. My name is Anna from Northern Germany. I am a survivor, a fighter for the rights, human rights, refugee rights. Also, I'm an activist against Putin and his war, and here in this channel mostly I speak about depression, also sometimes about writing because I enjoy writing, and also history is one of my passions. This is my third attempt to make this video because on Tuesday I went through the German Bureaucracy Day because it's a very big celebration, Bureaucracy Day in Germany. And every day is Bureaucracy Day in Germany because they really like bureaucracy. And now my tongue hardly moves. And also yesterday we had Spazieren Gehen Day, so yeah, I'm trying, staying alive. And it's also May here, it's sunshine in northern Germany. I still don't know what I think about it, if I enjoy it or not, but the weather doesn't ask me, so we have to live with that. We enter the survival period for me. But okay, whatever. I want to talk about the day that is very meaningful for every Russian because we celebrate this day from the very beginning, from the 9th of May 1945 or the 8th of May. Maybe you know this day is the 8th of May because I think for the rest of the world it's the 8th of May, and for Russia it's the 9th of May because of the time changing and also because we like being different, even if being the same means living prosperously or well. No, it's not for us. In Russia we're like going our own way. So yeah, the 9th of May, the Victory Day, this is how it is known in Russia, is a very, 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 very important celebration. And this day, the 9th of May, 1945, the largest part of the Second World War was officially over. The root of the problem had already shot himself by that moment, and Germany capitulated. There were papers signed because we all like papers, signing papers, official bureaucracy, love. And it's a very big day in Russia because I think it's obvious that the Soviet Union lost the biggest number of people who were fighting in the war. And our culture of talking about the war, it's very vast because every child knows about the war. It's like we are taught about the war from the very small age. And of course, especially at that point, people were returning from the war, and for them it was important not to forget. I don't know why it is known by the name of the Victory Day in Russia, because maybe it would have been more logical to call it something like, I don't know, the Grief Day or the Memory Day or, I don't know, the Freedom Day. Why not? Because people died in the war to give the future generations freedom. They were fighting for that. And yeah, in Russia, the celebration for the veterans, because of course they were the victims, and they celebrated by themselves. In small circles, they drank a glass of vodka, and they just said to themselves, never again, let there be no war again. That was their the most desirable thing for them, for the war never to happen again. Yeah, maybe it's utopia, but it was hope. The end of the war was hope for the world. And of course, the war is the topic for like different creations. In Russia we have lots of movies, very, very sad, tear-squeezing movies. We have songs like this. They're beautifully tragic, tragically beautiful. The songs, for example, in one of the songs, a person who went through the war, survived. This person is remembering his comrades from the war who didn't survive, and he's looking into the sky and he sees birds, and he thinks that possibly after the soldiers died they turned into the birds, because there should be the reason why his heart aches when he sees the birds. And yeah, also we have stories, short stories, novels dedicated to the war, or like the people who lived through the war, or people who survived the war then went to Gulag. Thanks, Joseph Stalin. We appreciate your work. No, we don't. I hate Joseph Stalin. And yeah, so that was that was about it, about the Victory Day, about celebration of the Second World War. Parades, for example, because Russia is probably known right now for these immense parades, or this armor shaking, as we call it in Russia, when you just show off with your weapons. They existed, but they were not that frequent. There was a parade when soldiers were returning from the war, and it was actually the tragedy of these days when people were returning from the war, that many people died right for the victory, called victory, or the end of the war. Let's just call it the end of the war. That was the saddest thing for me. And yeah, so they were returning, and there was this parade. Joseph Stalin was the leader at that point, and there are rumors that he wasn't at the parade. He wasn't leading the parade because he was afraid to be murdered. That's why he was filmed later. So there were soldiers. They threw flags of Nazi Germany on the ground, and yeah, what they did to them then, I don't remember. And then after some years, yeah, again, there were parades, but people didn't care for them that much, because also I cannot imagine a person who went through the war and who would enjoy a parade, a military parade. I literally cannot enjoy this person. I cannot imagine this person. But yeah, so it was a silent day, as in one of the songs they say, a celebration with tears in eyes. And I want to touch upon the period of my childhood and how it all was when I was a little child. For me, it seems like the war was around us every time. Maybe because Chechnya was still on fire, or maybe because we were taught from the very beginning about the war. The war is bad, the war is blood, the war is tears, the war is loss. So this is what it was. Never again, still, when I was growing up. And so then after the USSR collapsed, the Victory Day stayed, because yeah, we still had many veterans who were living quite a miserable life, unfortunately. And unfortunately, they lived it till the end. So many of them didn't get any benefits that were promised by the government to them. Like, for example, they never got an apartment or a house, or in the places where they lived, sometimes there was no hot water or there was no heating. And yeah, it was a very sad story about every veteran. But yeah, in the 90s, or like after 1997, when I was born, it was still Yeltsin's period. Yeltsin, it was the previous president of Russia before that one. And I think it was still more never again than let's do it again. And in the kindergarten, we celebrated this day. We had dances, we had songs, usually these war songs. The most popular one, like Katyusha for girls, because this song Katyusha about the girl who is waiting for her boyfriend, her husband, whatever, from the war. And this song was had been written even before the Second World War, as far as I know. My grandfather really liked it. And also like 3 tank men for boys. So yeah, gender roles, girls are waiting, boys are dying. Love that. We still live like this in Russia. Also girls give birth like 1 child every year, and the boys die in the war. This is what Putin likes. It was all close somehow. I remember I was afraid that my father would be sent to the war. I don't know why or where it came from, but in Russia, every family was involved in this or that way. I personally have at least 2 great-grandfathers who died in the war. One of my great-grandfathers disappeared, so just completely disappeared. He was never found. Last time he was tracked in the hospital in Smolensk, and he was getting some treatment there. And often, as it happened among the soldiers, the Soviet soldiers, they were supposed to carry some kind of capsule in their pockets with their name. But carrying this thing was considered to bring bad luck. That's why they didn't have them when they died. So many people just died. They were never buried. So yeah, it's also kind of very, very disturbing, very upsetting. My other great-grandfather, he returned from the war, but he got such a devastating abdominal injury that he died shortly after. But yeah, one of my great-grandfathers, he was an officer, his rank was higher, and he was studying during some years of the war, like 1943, 1944. He was studying in Moscow. He even found a lover there. So yeah, everyone was busy. By the way, if you for the upcoming Tuesday, I'm preparing an article about the inconvenient truths. That it's also based on my experience, on my family stories, and also what I heard, what I know from documentaries or from books. The inconvenient truth about the Second World War for Russia. And so every place, every house has their own hero. It's also a quote from a song. Then, Mr. Putin. Well, Mr. Putin appeared in 2000, but it took him quite some time to turn a kind, light day into something like, now we call it in Russia, Победобесие. that translates literally as being demonically insane about the victor, something like this. And yeah, so it took some time, and at early 2000s, I don't remember people getting too insane about the Victory Day. But then every year the parades became more and more frequent, and I think we watched them. And my grandmother, she's a big fan of the parades. My grandfather, he already died, unfortunately. He liked watching planes because he was a pilot. But my grandmother, I don't know, it's still a bit hard for me to understand her because she was born in 1936, so she's a child of the war. And every time we had arguments because I didn't want to watch the parades, and she was telling me, you don't understand anything, and I saw the war. To be fair, she did see the war. She remembered how they were transported to Siberia with her mother, because it was impossible to stay for them in Kurskaya Oblast, the place where I was born. And she told me stories how they were transported, how they had to wait in Moscow. Moscow was being bombed, and they had to stay in the underground. The subway wasn't running, of course, and there were like this wooden racks where people, women, children were sleeping there. And yeah, I don't understand how, I understand propaganda, brainwashing, but never again. And military parades, I don't see the connection between them, but yeah, whatever. And then it was starting to stoop into something very sticky, very stinky. I think it started to happen around 2012. Mortal Regiment was introduced to us in 2012. What it is? Okay, I will try to explain it. I'll also show you the pictures because maybe you saw it somewhere in your cities. In America, I think it took place at some point. So literally it is a stick, and it is a framed photo of your dead relative with short information about your dead relative who died in the Second World War. And you go to march through your town, through your city with this portrait. And originally the idea was just by one enthusiast who really wanted to remember his relatives, but then the idea was stolen, and of course it started to take a very, very peculiar shape, let's call it like this. Personally, I never participated in the Immortal Regiment because, I don't know, I find this idea a bit bizarre. You walk with a dead person. I don't know, like I would really be curious to see the opinion of people who are not from Russia, like, because I'm really curious, like, what it looks like for you. Does it look bizarre? Does it look creepy? Does it look like what? Because I am a bit biased by my culture, where I grew up. And yeah, so the story started to become a bit stinky at the moment when kind of was stolen by the authorities, and they made it a circus because they started to stage it somehow. They invited children, they forced people to come, not even with their relatives. They gave them portraits of some people. Then these portraits were found in the trash dump because those were not the relatives of the people, the relatives who actually died in the war. Maybe they did die in the war, but the person who was carrying this thing had nothing to do with this person. Of course, after the march, they were all thrown away, and there were scandals, and I Still don't understand why it was done like this. But yeah, this is the Immortal Regiment. A bit dubious activity, but I don't know. And also in 2012, the concept of "we can do it again" flourished. It's a bit questionable where it comes from. They say that it comes from the messages that the Soviet soldiers left on Reichstag. There were many messages that if it's needed, they can do it again. They can return to Germany and fight. But I think it was more of a warning, just informing, because yeah, people who had just gone through the war, to threaten, I don't know, or maybe they didn't really understand what they were writing. But even this, it's not entirely clear if this is the origin of "we can do it again." In 2012, some men gave birth to this. The stickers, instead of stickers "never again," "we can do it again" is disgusting, hideous, it's censored. If you want to see the original, you can Google it. But there is nothing that I hate more than this, well, except for Putin. Putin is incomparable. And yeah, so these stickers, they became popular. The popularity raised in 2014, and we all know what happened in 2014. The Crimea was annexed. After that, every day turned into the Victory Day. We were living in the perpetual Victory Day. Fortunately, by that moment, I already finished school. But it was like every celebration, every concert, basically every event was somehow dedicated to the Victory Day. They counted days. They literally started to count days for the Victory Day from January. But I understand why. Because he wanted to stay in power and he needed an enemy and ideology for people to make a circle around. So by this video, I want you to see how it was going on. Like, yeah, it's also, you can also watch my video for the noon against Putin, where I was telling people how to spot the dictatorship at like the core, at early stages, because it's better to spot it at the beginning. And I also made an example of Germany with their AfD party. There are protests against AfD party, which is nationalist. And the same, again, I have to repeat, Putin didn't happen to Russia in one day. And also the Victory Day didn't become like this, like in one day. At least 15 years or even more was needed to brainwash people and to turn their beliefs upside down about what is right and what is wrong. And this is how the invasion happened, like the war in Ukraine, Putin's war. And yeah, I think I just wanted you to know about this celebration. In my experience, I will always remember this day as something very, I don't know, sweet, but teary, sweet but like crying, because we have these traditions like 1 minute of silence, these songs, these stories told by veterans or by their relatives. They're all heartbreaking, and I remember this mixture of freedom, happiness, and sorrow on the 9th of May, because it was always the time when lilac was in blossom and the weather was usually nice until in Moscow They used their cannons to get rid of the clouds because Mr. Putin wanted a cloudless sky to see the skies, the flies, the plain sky. My week was hard. I'm really sorry. Yeah, and this is the day when everyone goes and walk outside, and there are concerts, there are fireworks, and it's special. It's special. I think in the future, when our dictator also decides to make our life easier and dies or shoots himself, I don't know, we'll have to reconsider how to celebrate this day. But for now, I think I will keep it like something warm in my heart. And yeah, thank you for watching. Remember that dictatorship might happen to everyone, and history exists to remember. And as soon as the remembering ceases, history repeats itself. And today I wish you love, and peace from Anna of Northern Germany. And I also wish you to live under the peaceful skies. So these are all expressions that were born in Russia, because Russians, in their core, they don't want any wars. Peace. Oh, Prince Charming, Prince Charming, blessed me with his presence, bless me with his presence.